Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Ethan and Jenna Show. I'm your host, Ethan, and alongside me, Jenna Belk. Jenna, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. My stomach's a little, so I have to be careful with how much ice cream I eat because I'm lactose intolerant, but I got Culver's last night, and it was like the best ever. So I decided to treat myself. I got a big, large sundae with peanut butter and marshmallow, and my stomach is paying for it today. I just like just
What's
so
Culver's?
you know, Culver's custard? You've never heard of it?
No.
Dude. All right, so their food, a lot of people do like it. It's not my favorite, but their custard, you know what frozen custard is, right?
Yeah, there was a Ted Drew's frozen custard was really famous in St. Louis.
It's so good. It's so
Yeah?
creamy and rich, but I'm paying the price today. Next time, I'm getting a small.
Ooh, you got bigger than a small and you ate it all?
I know. I'm like, as
Like
I'm eating it,
smalls are usually really generous.
yeah, as I'm eating it, I'm like, dude, stop eating it. You can already feel your stomach. And I'm just like, but it's so good. I'm unfortunately an impulsive child and don't always have the best self-control with things like that.
Well, we can talk about that with our crazy awesome guests that we have today, right? So do you want to introduce the topic?
Sure. So today's topic is the mental health roundtable. Essentially, it's like a mental health checkup. We're just going to bring our lovely guests on and talk about anything related to mental health, see how everybody's doing, seeing if they have any concerns, all the normal stuff. So let's welcome our first guest. We have Laura, unapologetically me. How are you, Laura?
Good morning. I am fantastic, and I'm here. So that's even better.
Yes.
Yeah, doing so good. How are you? Other than the tummy issues.
Yeah, other than tummy issues, I'm doing well.
So I'm the same way with ice cream. It just wrecks my tummy. Any dairy wrecks my tummy. Like I'm an almond milk person. So I do the same thing, and I always regret it. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so hard to resist.
There's some really good non-dairy stuff out there, though, so I try to stick with that, but it's just not the same.
No, it really isn't. Like, just real ice cream is the best.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring up next guest, Oz from the Atheist Roundtable. What's going on, dude?
What's up, guys? Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
I'm surprised you have the energy. For those who don't know, the Atheist Roundtable just hosted the Ultimate Debate Championships. It was like 12 hours of endless debates on multiple channels. It was jam-packed. It was kind of like, for anyone who's seen wrestling, like a King of the Ring, like winner of each round comes to the next one, fights each other until there is one person standing. And I believe that one person standing was at the end Godless Engineer.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Awesome.
I was very proud of just Jeff. He's part of the Atheist Roundtable team. He beat Cease to Know, which has a degree in philosophy. Then he beat T-Jump. Then he beat Shane the Skeptic, and then lost in the finals to Godless Engineer. But no, it was a blast. But I'm always gonna get out of bed to come hang out with you guys, whether I did 2 hours or 12 hours. So.
I was wondering who beat T-Jump because that was the first time I actually watched him debate, and I'm like, I don't want to be on the other side of a T-Jump debate. He's good.
Yeah,
I love how much variety we now have in the atheist community. It used to be like just AXP. You're right. And then now we have all this different stuff. We have all these different like fun debate battles, and we've got Ethan's colors,
Yeah. Yeah, well, and what's awesome is majority of the debates were atheist against atheist. So they had to find topics. They had to find topics that they disagreed on, and one of them was that Godless Engineer was involved in was Marvel versus DC, which is better. And they had to find it. And then in the finals, GE and just Jeff debated, is Bigfoot real? So it was a blast.
So I've been wanting to host like some more fun debates, and Marvel DC is one I've wanted to do. But we've got one more guest to bring on. Our last guest will probably be joining us later, but right now we've got IQ. What's going on, dude?
How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Super awesome.
It's a good day.
It is a good day.
Loving it. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming. Let's get started.
Well,
Laura.
IQ
yes.
is an awesome basic. You're a mod, right?
Yep, predominantly just a guy who comes in and helps.
But you typically call the show, like we have at least probably one IQ call every Ethan and Jenna show, right? And you
Well,
typically,
I do love the show. That's true.
well, but you do typically you shout some wisdom out at the end. It's usually towards the end, so people can kind of hold their breaths for it. It's kind of awesome. But that's why we invited the lovely
Wisdom
IQ.
is about practical knowledge, and I've been through the ringer, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned from them. So I try to pass that along to people.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure that we got some intro there.
Quite all right. We got a handful today, so it's all good.
Yeah.
So, Laura, how is
Yes.
your mental health?
Ooh, my mental health is really fantastic right now. But it was really interesting when you asked to do this show because even though it's good now, like I was thinking, oh my gosh, do we all have stories about even things in the past and stuff like that? And so there's a lot that I can talk about and bring to the table in terms of what my mental health has been and how I've gotten over it. But yeah, right now I'm doing fantastic. Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
What about Oz? What about you?
I would be sailing in that same boat right now. I've been good and healthy for quite a good bit now, but same thing. I bring a rap sheet of previous experience that we can definitely talk about and learning the hard way, learning the good ways, learning the healthy ways, all the above.
Awesome.
Right. IQ?
Well, I'm just kind of doing my thing. You know, I'm here, I'm there, anywhere that I can be, whatever time I got to devote, man. It's just my mental health is number one. You know, because that's, if you don't love yourself, it's kind of hard to get along with anybody else. So that's why I focus on introspection and mental health. And so this a show like this and what you guys focus on, you know, it's I'm a duck to water when it comes to this stuff, because that's my primary focus, is getting people to get inside their own head and figure out how they feel about stuff, how they really feel about stuff. Stop lying to yourself. And there's it's not as easy as it sounds. And you know, I like to be there to help people do that, and that's what you guys are doing. So I'm on board with that.
I
You're a
think
sweet IQ. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I think IQ brings up a good point, because even though Oz and I both are like, oh yeah, we're doing great, like that could change at the drop of a hat. And there's days where, like, if you had caught me on any other different day, I might have been like, oh God, I'm really struggling. Right. So I think he brings up a good point that mental health isn't like this meter that you're just at. And once you're there, you're there. It's kind of like this wave thing, and it changes like day to day, moment to moment. So thank you.
I was actually going to mention that was that both of you said that y'all were great. And then IQ was like, oh, I like to give back to the community, you know, it's not the same day to day. And I'm noticing that I was wondering actually if y'all were bad today, if you would have said that, right? So I'm glad that you said that too. But that's the thing is when I'm sorry, I'm pregnant and my brain
No worries.
all the time. But when you know it's not a bar that like that's who you are or anything, like this is just I'm always good or whatever. But it is moment to moment. It does change. It does go up and down. So I think that it's important that we make sure that we're aware of that instead, and yes, focus on everyone else, but also to make sure that we're still so self-aware that we are aware of when we're not up, you know, because that's when the depression creeps in, because all of a sudden you've been denying things and not taking care of things, and all of a sudden you're not okay. And it seems like a lot of people, I'm so glad y'all are all good right now. I actually happen to be really good today, right now too, but it seems like everybody else seems to be struggling right now. And I just wanted to make sure that we at least acknowledge that.
Yeah, anybody tells you that everything is okay is lying,
Not okay.
not paying attention, or they're selling something. Everything is never okay. There's always something going wrong. There can never be a time where every possible thing is just going right. I mean, mathematically speaking, I'm sure that's possible, but that's not reality. That's not the way shit goes down. Right. You're struggling when the bad is outweighing the good. It's all about perspective. You got to know what is good, looking and paying attention, holding on to what is good in your life. What hasn't gone wrong is very important, because shit can turn at a drop of a dime. And you have to focus on how good you do have it in some areas, even though everything may seem really bad. Holding on to that light can get you through some hard times, and doing whatever you can to pull yourself through it.
Yep. And the one thing that I try to do, and even, obviously my brain will get the best of me sometimes, but and this weekend is a perfect example. Jam-packed, crazy weekend as far as scheduling and everything. Guess what I have scheduled for like the next 48 hours after today? Nothing. It's me time.
Recovery.
It's me time. It's my wife and I's time, my kids, and it's doing that, and not scheduling, not working, not doing anything on that. But so you have to schedule you into your own schedule, and take care of your mental health and your brain, because if you don't do it, nobody else will, and people will take advantage of you. If you're a giver and you don't know how to say no, they'll take advantage of it, and next thing you know, your mental health is taking a hit because you're not saying no. So it's okay to say no, and if people don't respect that, tell them to get the hell off.
That's something else. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to mention that the part of spending time to look at yourself, something that I noticed with my partner is I'm really big on meditation. I'm like, you know what, we all should be meditating some, at least, because it's the only way that I know to focus your brain enough to really connect, to really have a handle on your emotions. And my partner has a big, like, he has a really hard time slowing his anger down, right? He gets so frustrated, and he has to walk away, and can't really get the warning signs. And I think it's because, he thinks he meditates all the time when he's fishing, right? That is meditation. That is practicing focus. He is fishing, that is meditation, but that's not time focusing on him, right? So that's different. Meditation, focusing on an activity or a project or something, that's one thing. But doing meditation and paying attention to yourself is, in my experience, how you become that self-aware, how you become knowledgeable about your state of mind and your mental health.
Yeah, certainly. And Oz said it perfectly by how he viewed that downtime. You notice how he stated what he has scheduled is nothing, and not just I've cleared my schedule, or I'm going to take this amount of time and not schedule anything and not have it. But no, it's an active slot fill of me time where you're looking at it. This is what is planned here, is to focus on me, and not just I'm just not going to do a bunch of other stuff, because it leaves it empty. It doesn't respect that you are focusing on you. It's just that you're not focusing on something else, and that takes away a lot from what you are actually focusing on. Because if you're just not focusing on everything else, you're just taking a time to avoid other things, and that leaves it kind of empty. If you take time to just not do other things, but actively be with yourself and be with what you are missing, that really puts a lot of emphasis and focus on it. And, kudos, Jenna, to your significant other to be able to walk away, because that deserves a lot more credit than people usually give. Because somebody can get fired up, they can get frustrated. We all do.
They can feel ignored.
To continue to engage, to let it get too far, to get it to a place where you have to apologize for something, maybe. But to notice when you've hit that point, hit the red button, and discontinue the conversation and walk away, boy, that is golden. That's really good.
That's the hard part. Yeah. That's the hard part, to find that moment. When is too far? When have I gotten to the point where I can't stop anymore?
Yeah, and understanding that about yourself, that's a really good thing. So, we all get frustrated, and knowing that point is so important. Yeah. So kudos on that.
Well, and I think I'll go ahead, Oz, first.
You sure? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I think IQ brings up a really good point, and even Oz, where when you're talking in terms of your own mental health, that is not something that you just take care of when you have free time or when you have a moment here and there. you have to schedule time for yourself. And I know a lot of people have told me like, well, I'm too busy. I feel selfish. I need to give time to my kids. I need to give time to my husband, my work, whatever. But when you're able to take that time and deliberately go away from the husband or the kids or whatever it is that you have going on in your life, you come back to the table with something better than if you're just running and running and running yourself dry and only trying to take advantage of those few minutes here and there when you can sneak in some me time. So I think that scheduling aspect is probably one of the most key things that I would encourage.
So this is actually pretty difficult for me to schedule. Like I'll have my own chill time, but I find it difficult to take time to focus on my mental health because, okay, so because of what had happened in the past, I feel like I'm playing catch up with life and I'm very behind in many ways, like in my emotional, intellectual development, where I'm at overall. Like there's so much I have to do. So I have trouble stepping away because I am like a workhorse. So when I'm, for instance, trying to do something that is more me focused, I will be like, dude, you're just wasting time right now. If you're not spending time on your channel and developing your future, then you are wasting it. So I actually struggle. Now, the exception to that is I can like make time to go out like on dates or just relaxing with somebody, but just scheduling time for myself to focus on me is incredibly difficult for me to do.
I can add to that.
To clarify once more, none of us are mental health professionals.
Nope.
We are all peers. We are friendly people who are interested in the topic and interested in learning how to take better care of ourselves. And we've invited guests that we think have said good things that people need to hear more. So we are just expressing ourselves. We are not to be our advice is not to be taken professionally. Just disclaimer.
Yes, I offer nobody professional mental advice. I am a professional in my own subjective terms. I'm a professional inside my own head and with myself only. I can offer guiding advice on how I've gotten through things, but everybody's taken a different slice of the pie, and you can't, really speak for anybody else's experiences or, pain or trauma. But you can kind of get a good guiding light from some people sometimes. But for no stretch of the imagination should we be considered to be handing out medical advice.
Right.
And to add on what you were saying, Ethan, really think about this situation. I can feel that where you're at is it's a goal-oriented situation. You have this expectation in your head about where you should be in life and what exactly and like a point of your life that you should be at, that you're not quite at, that's going to require so much work. Yes, it's good to have goals, but I really think what would help alleviate the struggle that you have with that is to not look at your situation as where you should be, but focus on where you're at instead.
Yeah.
I have this to do. I have this to accomplish, and I should be doing this, and I should be, in this state of mind with this certain situation. Don't worry about that. You'll get there when you get there. If you try to put in a cheat code and jump there, you're going to miss why you should be there. So it's the experience. Focus on what you're doing right now. Focus on the journey. Focus on what you're doing at the moment, because that is where you're going to gain the wisdom. It's in the experience, man. And just don't try to look ahead too much. See the road ahead of you, but walk where you're at.
That's all that you have control over anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's literally all that you have control. That's something I learned in rehab at 26 years old. But I did not learn it until that time. And I just think that's, to me, in my opinion, that's just way too late in life to learn this. That is all you have control over is the present moment, your actions and your feelings, your perspective and the present moment. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tend to not get disappointed because, the roots of disappointment is appointing yourself in the first place.
Yeah. I've even, in my previous career, told my sales team all the time, the only thing you can do is control your moment. That's all you can do is do the best to control your moment and be present in the present. Because what happens tomorrow, you have no idea. You have no clue what's going to happen tomorrow. And at 40 years old, Ethan, I know with my mental health, you know, and I know this is subjective, but I had to learn the hard way that as a also a workhorse and one that loves to grind and grind and go and go. Eventually, what you do to yourself is you go from the workhorse to that brittle horse that can barely walk on its own because you've worked yourself into a frenzy, you know. And so and that's why I say you literally have to schedule it. You have to put it in your calendar like you would any other appointment and schedule around it. Don't try to schedule it in, schedule around it. And that's I'd recommend that for everybody. Schedule it in if that's something you know you need to do. You know, be accountable to yourself, because at the end of the day, if you can't look in the mirror and you can't hold yourself accountable to these things, nobody else on this planet is going to hold you accountable to them. So you'll be able to look in the mirror and be able to talk to that person in the mirror and be honest with that person in the mirror and do that for you. Do it for you.
Yeah, and I just want to add really quick, when you talk about how you tell people the only thing in that situation that you can control is your own reaction. The other thing you can do that I find really helpful is communicate that to others. And what I mean is, like, when I'm in a really bad mood or something that I can't control, I will tell my husband and my kids, like, hey, this is not about you right now. This is about me. I need to take some time. I need to go in the other room. Like, there's been times where I've gotten emotional and I've been like, hey, I need a second. And I get up and go to the room. And my husband follows me because, I mean, he wants to know what's going on and he wants to help me and fix me.
Right.
And I'll tell him, I'll say, there's nothing you can do right now. I need to get a hold of my emotions. I need to come down. And then I'll tell you what went through my head or what happened. But we don't do a good enough job communicating to other people, this is where I'm at in the moment and it sucks. So just give me like a little bit of leeway.
And on the reverse of that, if you're dealing with somebody that is in that state of mind and isn't removing themselves, you have a right to remove yourself.
Absolutely.
You have a right to say, you know what, I can't handle this right now. I need to step away.
Right.
You know,
if I
It
could,
all starts with that person right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Man in the
if I
mirror.
could,
Ooh, y'all about to get me singing Micheal.
if I could share the equation, there's a book. It's called Life in Focus by Tim Kite, and it has a equation in there that I read this book probably 12, 13 years ago, and I still use this. I teach this equation to my kids. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome.
Ooh,
So
I like
you can't control the event, right? The event's going to go down, and the outcome you can only have an impact on. You still can't control the outcome, but given the best possible outcome that you can have, how do you respond? Not react. How do you respond? And just what you guys were talking about, if you want the best response to get the best possible outcome, it's called a strategic pause. Hit the pause button and think about the response. What response do I give or do I provide right now that's going to give me the best outcome possible? And if if that's something that helps you, it's helped me tremendously, because I'm a very, very patient man now. I wasn't always like that. I had to really practice that equation, because I used to be trigger happy and snap in a heartbeat. So thank their God for that equation, and good people around me. But hopefully that does help. But it was a great book, great lesson, great equation.
Patience is where it's at. Most people don't understand what patience is.
It takes practice. You know, you're not going to be great at removing yourself from the situation at the perfect time every time, the first time you try it. So if you're triggered, if you're like I used to be too, and actually I still kind of am at times. There are times where I still can't control my reactions. And so I literally, that's my first thing my go-to response is just walk away. If you can't think of anything else to do that might be right, just walk away. Give yourself time to evaluate what's going on in my body. That's what I tell my partner is I need to figure out how I feel, because I don't know right now. I need to figure it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, when somebody is taking hits, that's born from indifference, or somebody just not wanting to voice their opinion. That's somebody taking abuse when they withhold speaking up just because they're out of fear or indifferent. That's abuse. When you are reacting on something out of a calculated set of, like, when you have a cause, there's a reason why I'm going to withhold reacting on this. That's patience, because patience does not kick in. I always tell people when they said that they've lost their patience, I said, no, you did not lose your patience. Patience is virtuous by its difficulty. Until waiting is completely unbearable, you are only waiting. You do not lose patience. You refuse it.
Patience only counts when it's
Oh,
It
hard,
kicks
and
in when
honesty
shit
only
gets
counts
tough.
when it's hard.
Hold
Yep.
on. You do not lose patience. You refuse it. I need to write that down.
Well, I'm not
I thought she was going to start doing dance off.
I know, I like it.
I love little like hacks that are only a couple of words.
Pithy.
Because I feel like there's so many things that you have to like sit down and explain. But that's one thing that's like, okay, that's straight and to the point, kind of like the "this too shall pass" thing that I'll give the Christians. Even that works. That sums it up. This will end.
It all ties up. I mean, like they say, if you don't know something unless you can explain it to a 5-year-old, right?
Right.
So if you how complex your answers are leaves so much room for misconceptions and failure in your logic. If it's simple, some things are intrinsically complex and it takes a lot of brain work to wrap your head around. But a lot of things in life, especially when it comes to mental health, there's a lot of things that you're excuses that you're putting, a lot of stuff that you're putting to the side, a lot of ways that you're, just excusing things to happen because of this or that. Simplify it. Take a step back and look at it. If you can explain it to yourself simply, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old, there's a good chance you have a pretty good understanding of what it is. Because when you say something, oh honey, you wouldn't understand, and they're like, why? Remember, a lot of the times if you're asked a question by a 5-year-old like that, you don't have an answer. It's because you don't really fucking know. And you've made a lot of excuses to convince yourself that you understand what you're talking about, but you really don't. And the real answer is something that you don't want to say because you know it's wrong, but you don't really think about it. So you don't actively know it's wrong. You don't know you're lying to yourself, but you are, and you just haven't asked yourself that question to get to that point. Really ask yourself the hard questions. Ask yourself, like, am I lying to myself? Like, am I looking at this right? And that's self-honesty. And it's a lot harder than being honest with other people, because that's just telling the truth. Telling the truth to yourself, lying to yourself is the easiest thing in the world, and it's the hardest thing to see. It's terrible. But if you can catch how you can lie to yourself, you can be better at not lying to other people.
So IQ, you bring up a really, really good point, because you said at first, if you can't explain it to them like a 5-year-old, as though you don't understand or you're not knowledgeable enough about it, like, hey, maybe you need to get more knowledgeable. But then you went this different route and said, well, you just don't want to. And I think that's where we fall most often. I think we can explain to other people what we're going through, what we're feeling, but there's a lot of times where we want to protect their feelings, or we don't want to come off sounding like an a-hole, or we don't want to come off as too sensitive or too vulnerable. So we could explain it to them. But when we say, you just wouldn't understand, I think you hit the nail on the head when you kind of like, and it was sort of like something you said in passing, but I think you made a good point when you say sometimes we just don't want to. And to be able to find that language and be able to communicate even through the discomfort and the vulnerability of it helps other people to come to the same page to us a lot quicker.
And
interject real quick. We do have 2 callers on hold. We will get to you in a little bit. All that we do ask is, while we do normally try and have a back and forth conversation with our callers, because we have 5 people today, we are going to ask that you keep your statement brief, or keep your question quick and to the point. So that way we have plenty of time for everybody currently on the stream. Sorry, Oz, go ahead.
Lost it. No idea.
Oh, no.
I'm going to rewind the tape.
That's actually what go ahead.
I would like to get to this comment. My father lost his life to suicide. For me, avoiding the anxiety and issues with PTSD is easier than facing the fear because of the direction facing it for my father. My me time to face it with my therapist once a week because it's a safe place. I firmly believe in therapy because you cannot let out every emotion and be okay, and you aren't alone doing it. So I get that, because there are certain things that I avoid thinking about, because the stress of thinking about them is very like overwhelming and disorientating. So I'd rather not, especially if there's not something I can do to fix it. I kind of just try to avoid it.
Well, that's the other thing, is there's another kind of approach that I've noticed, and I've actually learned happens to more people than I thought it happens to. It just takes practice to stop doing it. The whole, like, when you're having a conversation with somebody and it starts to get kind of heated, and then you can tell that the person you're talking to is totally confused about what they're talking about, but they just keep talking, right? And that's it seems to be something that a lot of people do when they feel like they're losing, right? Not necessarily that they are, but they feel like they're losing whatever side that they're on. And I think that that's the point. If you're confused, if you realize that you don't exactly know what you're fighting for, you don't exactly know what your point is anymore, that's one of those moments that you can recognize as, you know what, let's stop a second and remove ourselves and try to face it, because then you can fix it. I mean, you can't fix it if you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead.
I remember what I was going to say, so I wrote it down this time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So one on the comment when they brought up therapy, yes. Find a professional that fits you and your needs. It took me 3 years to find my therapist. She's a secular therapist. If you need a great secular therapist, let me know. I'll get you hooked up with her. She's awesome. She does it mobily too. So if you live in another state, it's still good to go. But yes, go do that. Talk therapy is fucking huge. So do that. And then the whole what IQ brought up about tricking ourselves and lying to ourselves and that kind of thing. Yes, that's definitely there. And I think a lot of us do that. And I definitely was guilty of hiding the different ways that I felt or how I viewed things or saw things because I was worried about what people were going to say, what people were going to think, how harshly I was going to be judged. And when I finally hit a spot in my life where I was like, you know what, I just don't give a shit anymore about how you feel or, what you have to say about me if it's not warranted, if it's not justified. I just don't give a shit. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. I'll be kind, when I do it, but I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. And I'm going to be 100% transparent because I'm sick of hiding it. And I'm sick of not being honest with myself. And if I can't be the most authentic version of me when I'm with you, fuck you. I don't want to be around you. Just get away and go make other friends.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead.
Well, I just really quick, can you write down? I'm sorry, I don't want you to forget.
No worries.
But there's a comment here. Am I the only one who completely loses my memory of what was discussed halfway through a fight? No, I
Nope.
don't. You're not alone there.
I do that too.
That seems to be when you're triggered. That's when you are no longer thinking logically. You are thinking part of your brain, and you are just trying to win.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the time. That's the time when you black it out, and that's when you're confused. Remove yourself. Go, okay, what happened? And you need to write it down because you do forget pieces, and then you remember other pieces as you write it down if it helps. But definitely talk about it after. Don't just, let's just forget about it.
Yeah. And
right?
Dr. Josh Bone talks about this a lot with he and his wife, and I've started to try to use this recently in some of my relationships, friendships, things is, okay, what I hear you saying is, and then you're basically steel manning them in the art, in a disagreement. That way you're not blowing gaskets, because
Right.
you're not worried about what you're going to try to say next. Instead, you're more trying to understand their position. Yeah.
It's called active listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be an active, charitable listener.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that him and I we've been talking about it more and more frequently, and he's even started using it when he's a mod now in our debates, and it's great because it makes you pause and say, okay, what I hear you saying is, and you have to repeat it back. That way it's not just, well, I actually have no idea what you're saying. I'm just so pissed off. I want to argue.
Right.
You know? So,
and then they can say, no, that's not what I'm saying. And you can say, oh, I'm sorry. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying this, and we can talk later about why I thought that if we need to, you know, if it's certain body language that we need to talk about. But right now we need to talk about what's going on, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So going back to what I
when
said
somebody
earlier,
already assumes that they know what you're saying, when somebody already assumes that they know what you're saying and they understand the complete point, which we all do this, and sometimes it's right. You're like, look, I already get what you're trying to say. Let me just cut you off right there. And you know, that's a real thing. But when that's overdone, you can miss where somebody's coming from, because they might not be going where you think that they're going with it, and opening yourself up to your reservations and your expectations of what you think you know, and just stepping back and learning, because if that's what a conversation is. It's two ways, man. If you're just waiting for your turn to talk, that's not a conversation. There is another word for, you know, a conversation where it's one person talking and one person listening. It's called a lecture, and that's not that's not productive. If you're either teaching or you're learning, right? So if two people are learning, that's a conversation.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do during that like active listening time is be willing to apologize a lot and be willing to be wrong. Because I know a lot of times we have a tendency to preconceive where the other person is at. So even as they're saying, no, what I really mean is that, in our brains, we kind of maintain this sort of perspective that's really hard to break down. And if we're willing to say, oh, no, I'm sorry, first of all, that automatically humbles you, like not just to them, but to yourself, and automatically softens your position in your own mind.
You could also, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, but then when you can let go of any preconceived notions and just hear what they're saying and take them at their word, then you can move forward in the conversation.
Yeah, that's
generous with expressing your feelings at the time. When you just said that makes me feel like I'm not doing. It makes me feel like you think that I'm not doing anything.
Yes.
You know. Sorry,
I can't remember who I heard say it, but it said regarding fights and disagreements, arguments, whatever you want to call them. If your approach is "I'm in it to win it," you are actually never in it.
Nope.
And I remember I was like, damn, that makes it sounds like it makes no sense, but it actually makes all the sense.
But, you know, I'm actually listening. I don't know if it was me that kind of turned the conversation towards the mental health during arguments or whatever. It just seems like with the pandemic and people being locked in houses, I've heard so much about domestic abuse spiking up and suicides and liver disease because people are drinking and all this. And so that's kind of why I wanted to go there. But I'm actually listening on the great courses right now. I love this course. It's called The Art of Conflict.
Ooh.
It's fascinating because you start learning that when there is something that traditional that happens. Oh, can you do this for me? Oh, why do I always have to do that for you? There are goals personally on each side, and there are interpretations from each side. And so that's what I just wanted to stress what Oz just said about the clarifying what they're saying and trying to actually understand and listen, because if you can slow yourself down, which sometimes it takes meditation to practice that. Disclaimer.
So I want to get to this. We got to get to our caller in just a moment. And I do need to get back to meditating because my brain is just all over the place. The only thing I have found that actually calms my brain down is cuddling. I have yet to find anything else since I got better that will allow my brain to just go, you can relax now.
Does hugging count?
Yeah.
Because that seems a little bit easier to get a hug than a cuddle.
Well, I'll be honest. I make posts looking for cuddle buddies, so I'm pretty transparent about it. Seriously,
when in the moment, you could be with a friend, and it doesn't have to be a cuddle buddy. You'd be like, "Can I get a hug?"
I mean, yeah, if you're at a restaurant or something and you're having a raw moment, and they just stand up and "Hey, I'm gonna hug you right here and right," that instantly can make a person feel good.
Yeah.
It may also help to ask yourself and find out what the active ingredient, so to speak, is in the cuddling that gives you comfort. Because, you have a headache and you take a Tylenol. The Tylenol did not get rid of the headache. It has an active ingredient in it that plays a specific role and does something. It's the same thing with mental health and the medications, quote unquote, that we use for our mental health have an active ingredient. There's something in the cuddling that you need to find, and if you can find out what that active ingredient is exactly, you may find it in other things.
Right. So I'd like to get to, before we get to our caller, what Jessica said. I hear and understand everything you're saying, but what can you do when the other person is unresponsive to your efforts? They just insist on screaming and using rhetoric.
Walk away.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say.
Yep.
That is when you step back and say, I can't talk to you right now. Love to have this conversation when we're both calmer, but can't do this.
Yeah, they're toxic. Tell them to get the hell on.
Especially if they're like on something and they literally can't control themselves.
And keep in mind that, and I'm sorry to burst in on that, but this is really important with that that notion, is that bringing it up when you guys are both calmer is difficult, because you know what goes through your head? I don't want to ruin this because we're both happy right now, and I don't want to cause, I don't want to make it stressful. No, you have to take one for the team. That is the time to talk about things, because you are both in a better mental state, and that is the time to just put shit out on the table. Because when you're both upset, that is you're both going to be irrational. And when you're both having a good time, you're not ruining that good time. You're taking advantage of a proper mental state to address really what is going on. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get to our first caller. We do have a few on hold. Please keep in mind, once again, while we will normally take these calls or have a longer conversation today, we have to keep them quick and to the point, just because of the number of guests we have. So coming up first, Mike, what did you want to ask or talk about?
Hello?
Mike? Hey,
Hi.
You're on with Ethan, Jenna, Laura, IQ, and Oz. What's going on?
Oh, that's great. Well, in addition to the usual, I know you hate it, Ethan, but I love you, brother. Love you, Jenna, and Oz and Laura. Everything you guys have said, just wonderful. Yeah, there's so many things I would like to discuss, but indeed, keeping with the pacing of the call, or the calls, how much time you guys have, wanted to just bring up, very intimidated by the roundtable discussion. There's so many opinions. Basically, when I was talking to you last time, I had mentioned the loss of my uncle amongst other people, and I was tasked with taking care of all of his notebooks from school. And going through everything, it's going to be like scan it or get rid of it. Just going through everything, there's so much on Plato and Plato, Machiavelli, Thomas Aquinas, just all these. He was a brilliant mathematician. He was so smart. He was so educated. And I remember at the very end of his life, when I was sitting there in the care facility with him, him saying, "There's nothing that Jesus can't solve." And so obviously I'm not going to be negative about that, and I'm going to let that just whatever. Is that just a comfort thing? Does it just come down to comfort?
Can I take this one really quick?
Yeah, please.
Okay, because I noticed there was a good pause, and so I wanted to interject. So our emotional brain and our rational brains are two different sides of the brain. Not to get all sciencey and geeky, and I'm not a mental health professional, but from what I've studied and from my background. So when someone is an incredibly brilliant, rational, intelligent person, their emotional brain tends to still be the one in charge. And so it is very, very possible for very intelligent people to still hold on to beliefs like that and justify them and rationalize them using their intelligence. So the emotional tie to that belief is then reinforced by their intelligence. So I would say it's not just a comfort in the sense that he's not purposely holding on to a lie just to comfort himself. I think there's a true belief there that overrides reason, and that reason is then used to justify that belief, if that makes any sense. And I don't know that any explanation will bring you any comfort about that. But just us understanding that. Oh, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I just no. That's exactly the reason I asked, because I almost felt like he was trying to tell me that to comfort me, and it's like I don't believe that. And he was saying, just like I said, there's so much I could talk to you about the breathing. I've been watching Genesis. I've been watching the, the meditation stuff, and it's like and he was just like, just breathe deeply, and when you breathe in and out, you can it's almost like the word Jesus comes out of your mouth, and it was like, okay.
Was he a religious person?
Not necessarily. Not up until the point of his death. So that's why it was really confusing to me, the idea of there's not. I remember specifically those words. There's nothing that Jesus can't solve, and I thought, gosh, what a weird thing to say.
Did you used to be like a firm believer?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Did you used to believe, or are you like was it called a cradle atheist?
I don't think I ever believed. I was raised Mormon.
Okay.
But no, I had problems with it when I was 8 years old. Like I never really believed, I don't think.
So that kind of helps me understand, that might explain possibly why it's hard to understand that hardcore of a belief, that hardcore of indoctrination of somebody who believes that much. If you've never believed that much before yourself, you know what I mean?
I suppose. Yeah, I didn't really understand. It was really tough going through all these books, and again, I'm doing a really poor job of articulating, just like I did previously. But it was just so, like, looking at all of this stuff and thinking, wow, this guy was so educated. He was so smart. All this philosophy, all this understanding, and yet some of the last words that he said to me were, "There's nothing that Jesus can't solve." Just didn't make any sense to me.
So,
wow.
Did anyone have anything else they wanted to say on the topic before we move on? Because we do have another guest we have to bring on in just a moment.
Yeah.
I can real quick. Sorry, Jenna, go ahead.
No, you go first.
It's kind of hard addressing that, just because we're talking about mental health, and this is more of a theological question, but it does really tie in. I always try to refrain from speaking in absolutes when it comes to stuff like this. Oh no, Jesus doesn't fix anything. I will grant anybody that yes, it's quite possible that Jesus is fixing everything in your life, and that we just have no means of, quantifying this somehow. I'm not going to tell you that that's not possible, even though I don't believe it. I'll grant somebody that, because I can't prove a negative. So I'm not going to start a conversation by saying that somebody's wrong, but I have better explanations in my life when I'm able to let stuff go, and things that I cannot control are just left to do what they do. Everything eventually works out, because when something is the way exactly that you want it, there's only one possibility. But there is almost infinite possibilities of things how it can go wrong. So things are typically askew if you want something to be exactly how it is. So if you let everything go, if you're able to just let the world work, Wu Wei, Chinese philosophy of just the act of not acting, of just going with the flow, being the water, you've heard all that. Things tend to work out if you're more acceptance on the chaos of life. So that in my head can tell me, at least personally, that that's the same thing as to put it off in somebody else into a divine hands could have the same effect as just being able to go with the flow, and things eventually work out to a manner to which you're able to cope with. And that's how I live my life. And it's not much different than putting something in divine hands. So I have a better explanation for that. which is why I don't personally believe, but I'm not going to tell somebody that they're wrong because I don't know that for sure. But anyway, it's my way of looking at that, and can kind of help it make sense because it's emotional intelligence and not cognitive intelligence. And if you're really super duper book smart, has nothing to do about your emotional intelligence, what you're willing to let affect you, and things that you don't really know about. That's emotional intelligence.
Jenna, you wanted to?
Oz, you're a fucking genius. I'm sorry.
I love it.
Yeah, I just had one point,
Wow.
just, on the understanding the level of intelligence and the level of dedication to it is, I usually try to stray from bringing up any particular member of my family, just because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm talking bad about them or anything. But there are some extremely intelligent people all over my family. My aunts, uncles, cousins, like they're doctors, they're CPAs, they're very well educated and successful, intelligent people that I have grown up around. And is there such thing as like herd mentality, guys?
What do you?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
Do
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I think that's what happens is so my dad is one of 7 children, and his parents were each part of big families. I'm one of 7 kids. My mom's one of 7 kids, 5 kids, and they aren't even Catholic, but they're Christian. They believe in God. So everybody believes, and we all get together and we pray together. And when it seems like, well, this many smart people believe it, well, it must be true, and that when you get around each other for how many holidays a year, it just ingrains it just even more every single time.
Yeah.
Just want to throw that out there.
T.A.R.T, Laura, anything you wanted to wrap up with before we move on?
No, I agree with everything everyone said.
I mean, I can keep talking to him for hours because it's so, like, I'm passionate about this stuff. But no, yeah.
Yep.
Well,
And by the way, so it's on the record, IQ's the genius, not us.
No, I've just paid attention through my failures.
all right. Well, Mike,
I really appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, we have another guest in the studio, Kenneth Leonard.
Kenneth, hello.
There's always one guy who just thinks he can show up late.
I know that dude at the party.
It's
Kenneth Leonard, the verifiable myth.
We can now start the show, everybody.
It's always like
We usually get a Kenneth call around this time anyway, too, right?
it's always a white guy who just thinks he can walk in. The entitlement. Anyway, hi guys.
Kenneth, how's your mental health doing?
I mean, I don't know. It's weird. I've been listening. What a cool caller, by the way. Really good questions. I tend to think of mental health as being in a lot of ways analogous to physical health, in that it's not very well defined. You can talk to your friends about whether or not they feel healthy. And some people will be like, well, yeah, I can run, a marathon. That means I'm healthy. And another will be like, well, I can bench press 300 pounds. So I'm healthy. But it's so subjective. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that if I want to get a good idea of where I stand, whether it's physical health, mental health, is to talk to a doctor, to talk to a professional, because my friends have no idea if they're physically healthy. They can't give me, they can talk about their subjective experiences or what maybe even their doctors have told them. But in terms of actually getting really good, sort of educated expert opinion on where I stand, I talk to my therapist, and he said it's a work in progress is the short answer with me. So, yeah.
Hey, that's awesome.
So I have a question, an anxiety question for all of you.
Ooh.
So one of the things that makes my anxiety worse is when I say stupid things. And it really is like, oh my God. So last night I made a post and I worded it very poorly. Laura, you got to see it. And I have since been like, oh my God. I messaged everyone who commented, and I'm sorry this came out wrong, but I'm also freaking out about the people who didn't comment and what they now think, because it was kind of the way it was worded, a very crappy thing to say.
It was just
How do you
vague.
feel?
Okay, we got to talk about what you said now.
Yeah. Well, even without saying what he said, it was just a vague post. And I get the same way when I make a mistake. I get anxiety, but I've learned not to take myself too seriously. And like, so when I make mistakes, I tend to laugh it off and shrug it off a lot easier now than I used to. But Ethan, dude, just change the wording, apologize. And there's always going to be people that even if you word it exactly perfectly, they will misunderstand your post.
Oh,
And
I know that, but in this situation, I worded it very poorly. Okay, so for humor, I sent this girl. I'm like, so I asked her if she would like do this. So I sent her a date review form to have her review how I did on the date. And I just put a bunch of goofy, fun stuff on there. We both had a laugh. However, in my post, I said that I sent her a review, acting like out of nowhere, she all of a sudden got a review of how she did on the date. So the immediate reaction was like, dude, that's like objectifying women. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, it's so not what I meant. And I look like such a douche now.
Well, I think that if you clarify what your intentions are and that that's not what you meant, and if there was background that, you know, it's made it kind of nuanced and there were, you know, things that people didn't know and you explain it. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, we all make mistakes. We all make slips of the tongue. And that's why I think we should take everything that we hear with a little grain of salt. How many times are you talking and you think, man, you know what? I said that wrong. Or I wish I could take that back, but it's already said and it's already, you know, everybody goes through that. And I think that when people like you who are in the spotlight share your mess ups, oh my God. Like I remember being in 7th grade and Kelly Clarkson said something like about messing up, you know, and it just made me feel so validated. I was like, oh my God, even Kelly Clarkson messes up, right?
What's the root of the anxiety? Where, I mean,
Having a healthy relationship.
I would say like the root of the anxiety is the perception that I look like a total fucking douche. Like that's where it's like, dude, like if people are, I wouldn't be anxious if people thought I was a douche for the way I actually am, but I don't want someone thinking I'm a douche for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, own the actual mistakes, and then
yeah.
But what if they do?
It sucks,
People
dude.
do.
It doesn't.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I
saying.
was saying earlier. With
Yeah.
you just never know how people are going to receive you. You just got to brush it off. Not everyone's going to love you.
No,
Yeah,
that I know.
And Ethan
It's your relationship with humility.
Ooh, I like that.
You need to be able to know that you're not perfect, and when you make mistakes, you're going to make mistakes, and that anxiety stems from I don't want everybody to know I'm an idiot. And I come right out and I tell everybody that I am an idiot, not in the sense that everybody thinks that I'm stupid or I'm incapable of this or that, but I'm human. I'm imperfect and I do make mistakes and I accept them and I learn from them. And whenever I do make mistakes, I own that shit. And I say, well, that's my imperfection overshadowing my mask to try to hide it from you. It's, you know, I'm going to make mistakes. I say, well, that's sorry, this is what I actually meant. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
You look like you're about to say.
I was just say, Ethan is as big of a personality as you have, and that you put it out there for people to see, which I think is endearing to what makes you a magnet for people. There's going to be natural hate or dislike because people typically either don't like or throw hate or shade at people that do what they're afraid to do. They're scared to do those things, so they don't like that because they haven't unlocked that part of them to be able to do it. So there's some shade there. But just know you can't. None of us can please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And if you have that expectation, that's where you will always have anxiety. You just have to understand that you're just going to piss some people off. Some people are just not going to like Ethan. Some people still may think Ethan's the douchebag, whether you're a douche or not. And it doesn't really matter.
That's true.
I think one area where I can really super empathize with Ethan is I'm a very excitable person, a very hyper person, and I get my thoughts out there quickly and often. And so sometimes I'll put something out there and not think about how it looks or how it's going to be received. And I do that all the time. And there's been multiple posts on my Facebook page that I've deleted just because I come back later and I was like, whoa, wait, I don't even agree with what I just said.
Right.
Because in that moment, like my brain just went, what? And so Ethan, I can really empathize with people like us who are very excitable and say a lot of things, have to often insert our foots into our mouths a lot more often.
Yes.
And so being able to do that publicly and with a smile on your face, like you're doing, where you're just like, oh, I screwed up so bad the other day. It doesn't just help other people's perceptions of you, but it helps take away your anxiety. Like I don't know how you feel right now, but do you feel less anxious having gotten it out, or do you
Yes,
still feel?
actually, that's very, I do. I feel a little bit less anxious.
See, that's awesome.
There's actually a guy that that really, really hates me on YouTube that will go on every single YouTube video that there is of me and just smash me. And what I have to remind myself of is that it's not about me. That when people are that hateful towards another person that they don't even know, especially, and they just take it out on YouTube, you know, or Facebook or whatever, they're not happy with something and they're not thinking necessarily logically, and they're just taking it out on someone because it makes them feel better right at that time. And so every time somebody's attacking me, it's not about me necessarily.
No, absolutely, it isn't about you. I mean, I tend to really like to go in my own life to playing out like what's the worst thing that could happen. Not in a way of fixating on it to be like, oh my God, I'm going to worry about what could go wrong, but sort of reducing a problem to simple terms so that I can come to terms with it. This goes back to when I was in the Army and I was getting ready to jump out of an airplane for the very first time. I was scared to death because I'm scared of heights. And the guy who was sort of in charge of the jump saw I was like trembling, and he's like, "What's the worst thing that could happen? You die." And and it was like just the honesty of it and the utter lack of bullshit. It was like, well, yeah, I guess that's the worst thing that could happen. Like, so can I or can I not deal with that?
Right.
And it's a very strange story, but like I felt at peace because it was simple. So it's like when you're talking about some asshole following you around, leaving comments, you know, on your stuff, Jenna, or, you know, Ethan, the concern that something that you say may not come out, you know, perfectly the first time. It's, you know, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Some stranger, you know, makes a judgment about you that isn't consistent with who you are. Right. You know,
or you get unfriended by a few people.
Those thoughts all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that this person is sharing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
We do have one more caller that we probably should get to.
So before we get to this caller, just a reminder, try and keep your question or statement brief and to the point, just because we have a big group of people. So, Deborah.
And we are not mental health professionals. Just another time to throw that out there. We are all six of us are peers. We are enthusiasts on the topic of mental health and mental health wellness. And so we are just talking about it and giving people a platform to talk about it and share their experiences.
Go see a therapist, a licensed therapist.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You like it or not.
Don't
but find a good one. Find one you like.
Yeah.
Deborah, you are
so
on
hello
the
everyone.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi everyone. First off, I have to say, Laura, I absolutely love your little name that you have next to it, Unapologetically Me. That is something that I am striving for in my life. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
And I do already have a licensed therapist that I work with weekly, just so we know. But what I wanted to touch bases on is like I was 15 when I was diagnosed with my first mental health issue, but I have been an adult. As an adult, I have been a healthcare worker my entire life. I spent 25 years as a paramedic, and I am now running a memory care unit. And the amount of stress that is put on our healthcare workers creates PTSD. I have issues from when. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, we were agreeing with you. Go on.
Okay. I have issues from when I was a paramedic that come up so unfortunately often enough that my husband has to deal with them, that it will be put in a situation where I'm like, I flash back to where I was, and he's like, he has to deal with me and say, hey, babe, okay, it's Russ. I'm here. It's your husband. You're not where you think you are. Come back to earth. Come back here. Come back to the present. And I think it's something that we don't touch enough on as a society. It's bad enough that we have mental health stigmas that are put on us because we admit we have a mental health issue. But then when you have healthcare workers who are facing the front lines every day, dealing with traumatic incidences, as well as just like, for instance, last night, I worked a shift last night, and I have a person who is, I hate to sound callous, but actively dying. And I know what needs to be done. I need to give them the medication to make it as smooth as possible. But yet, I still can't quite do enough. So I come home, and I'm grateful that my neighbor Mike is like, hey, come over, decompress, deal with what you have to do. Because it was very hard for me to know that I could not do any more for that particular individual and to ease their suffering. So I think that that's something that people need to recognize, is that as a healthcare worker, we are put under so much mental stress in dealing what needs to be done. And we do it. And I would do it 100 times over, 1,000 times over. I would sign up for the same exact life and career path that I have. But it's something that I think needs to be brought to the forefront, is that we are paying a price. And it's hard enough to say, hey, I have a mental illness, but to be a healthcare worker with a mental illness brings a whole new gamut to the game, right? Because we're now looked at like, oh, can you really do your job properly because you have these issues? And I'm going to tell you right now, I can do my job properly. In fact, I do my job incredibly well because I do understand the suffering that another human being is going through. And I will do everything in my power to make everything as smooth as possible for that person. But it does take a toll. It takes a huge toll on us as human beings.
Yeah, how are you today? Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I was just wondering, how are you today? How are you right now?
I'm a little bit sad today, and that's why I'm sitting in my neighbor's house talking to you guys, drinking a beer.
Aww. Okay.
Well, for one, that it's a great topic. I think, I can't talk. Healthcare workers, police, firemen, I think they all need a better mental health support system in place because of the things they have to deal with on a daily basis. And at times they, have to forget their own problems and just go to work and help other people.
Can I interject on that?
Yeah. Please.
Okay. So being in the armed forces and having like a brother who's a police officer and all that, and having been a volunteer firefighter, they're all in the place. They have the services in place. And I hate this. I don't use the word hate often. I hate the stigma around mental health and public servants. So when you're a doctor or a nurse or an EMT or a police officer, you're given this impression that you need to just be okay, and that to seek out help means you're somehow deficient. So all of the resources that these people need are in place, but when there's a fear to seek out the help, and when you can't even talk about it at work, like, oh, I'm going to go see my therapist today, for fear that someone will accuse you, like she was saying, like accuse you of not being able to do your job. I think that what really needs to be battled is the stigma that culture puts on mental health issues and how they translate to our public servants.
The fact is that every single person that I know could benefit from seeing a therapist. And because I want to add not only, police officers, firefighters, ET workers, nurses, doctors, surgeons, you want to go to teachers, want to go to grocery store baggers, going around the world. There are so many people literally being traumatized right now. Yeah. So, I mean, not only just from bad parenting passed down through generations for the majority of people, it's add the pandemic, add the freeze, add whatever natural disaster is happening around the world. And everybody could help, everybody could benefit if you can fill your own cup up, and then you can give back to others.
Right.
It's interesting. Sort of circles back to what was being talked about at the beginning of this stream, where Ethan, you had talked about how you often think of where you should be versus where you are and how that causes a great deal of stress. For healthcare workers, my best friend is a flight nurse, and he sees people on a regular basis in his job that he's trying to stabilize, that he's trying to help, and he can't because their injuries are so severe that there's just nothing he can do. Doesn't stop him from trying. But for healthcare workers, when we think about the way that we want things to be, the way that we often think of how things should be, when you're constantly being confronted with situations where you're seeing human beings suffering and there's only so much that you can do about it, and the gap between what you want to be happening and what is happening is often, something that you can't bridge. It's a different kind of stress. And what Laura said is spot on about the culture in military, law enforcement, healthcare of just suck it up. And you're talking about the people who probably need this culture the least, who it's going to harm the most, being subjected to it. So I didn't catch the caller's name. I'm sorry, but I'm very, very happy to hear that you're getting that you're seeking out health and that you're making it a priority and that you're investing in yourself and your mental health in the way that you are. You're setting an example. You're breaking down the culture.
I'm sure she's seen at this point what happens when you don't. Right, Deborah?
Oh, absolutely.
It really
think
seems like
that,
you got.
it
Sorry.
took me many, many years to realize that I needed to make self-care a priority because I can't care for other people who need me if I don't care for myself.
Yeah.
It really seems like you got a good plan going on too about how to address your own struggles. Of course, nothing's a fix-all, and life isn't perfect. Nobody has all the answers, but you have an outlet. You've got that neighbor that you can go to that has the right attitude, that you can talk to, that can hear you, that can understand you, and to go over there and have the beer, and you have the mental health professional that you go see. It seems like you're approaching it right.
Well, you're calling us too. I think that's a step.
Can I just ask one question real quick?
Yep. Quickly.
What kind of beer?
What kind of beer? Oh, it's White Claw. I hate to admit it, but it's White Claw.
Got alcohol.
Not going to judge.
All right, Deborah. Well, thank you for calling in. Sorry, we are on a time limit here, but appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. I absolutely appreciate you guys giving me an outlet to put something up. We can help one other person realize that we need to be a little more open with our mental health.
Yeah.
Great.
Indeed.
Have a good one.
All right. You guys have.
We're having a good day so far.
We are. The call's like frozen. Okay. Real quickly, we're going to get to our last caller. Allison, you're on with the roundtable. What did you want to talk about?
Hi. Hello, everybody. It's so awesome to see all of you together here. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I'm kind of fangirling right now to see so many good people. But anyway, my question is, how is your mental health while living in a capitalist society?
Okay, so this is a big one. So I'm going to ask everyone to keep their responses to a minute or less. Whoever would like to take that first, please.
I'll go first if nobody else. Okay, so I have discovered that, and I hope that this is appropriate, this is on topic, that if I am going to the grocery store, I have to make sure I have time to decompress after, because there are so many freaking decisions that you have to make at that grocery store. The best nutrition for the cheapest price, for the best quantity, for each product, for, can I afford this? Can I not afford, oh my God. I realized that it takes me a really long time to go to the grocery store because I have to make so many decisions. And yes, it's good that I have a lot to choose from. That's awesome, right? It's just that it's exhausting. So while there's a ton of good about it, that's what I'm experiencing is exhaustion left and right. That's just one example. It's a grocery store.
So what Jenna is talking about is called decision fatigue, where you can only make so many decisions before your brain just I can't take any more of that. And
Price
I think,
shopping is yeah.
yeah, and in a capitalistic society, decision fatigue is probably one of the most common. And I'm just throwing this out there, like I'm just throwing out a random stat that's probably a complete lie, but it seems to me to be one of the most common forms of fatigue that we suffer day to day. Is all those decisions that we have to make that in a non-capitalistic, and I'm not saying that this form of economics is the best or the worst. I'm not even going to get into that debate right now, but certainly that's not present in other forms of economic structures. And yeah, not only that, but trying to consider where the products came from, what kind of labor was involved, what impact am I having on other people by buying these products versus a different product, recycling, that kind of stuff, the environment. It can be absolutely overwhelming.
Well, what for you?
And most certainly.
Workforce too? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, and not to mention being like an active participant in the workforce all the time, and mental health just being shoved off to the side as no big deal kind of thing. That's affected me like a lot.
It's a very interesting. Sorry, go ahead, IQ.
When it comes to my mental health in a capitalistic society, it is what it is. I was born and raised and currently live in one, and I have nothing else to compare it to. Hell, communism sounds good on paper, but we know by the stories of the histories that we're told that it does not practically work, at least none in the sense that we've ever attempted. So when it comes to living in a capitalist society, I just focus on what I have to do to be me and learning what to avoid, right? What are the downfalls? Learning how to balance generosity, compassion, greed. And these are all aspects that can grip you and are normalized as far as the greed thing is concerned. We all shun upon it. And we know that greed is considered a bad thing, but think about it. That's almost what it's based on. It's, you work hard for your money, and the people who work hard prosper, and that's not always true. I bust my ass and I struggle.
In fact, the reverse is typically true.
So you have to learn how to be generous, despite. You have to learn how to be compassionate, despite. And you have to learn how to avoid the greed that's pushed upon you. And if you can balance that, you can get by and whatever. But I have nothing to compare it to, so it's just it's just life to me.
Yeah. All right, Kenneth and Oz, I wanted to give you both a chance to respond.
Yeah. It's funny. IQ jumped in with it. We're exactly where I was going to. The first thing that I thought of when I heard the question was there was this speech that David Foster Wallace gave. It was like a commencement address at a school where he opens by talking about how there's these two young fish swimming along in the ocean, and an old fish swims up and is like, "How's the water today, boys?" and swims off. And the two young fish look at each other and go, "What the hell is water?"
Yeah.
And exactly what IQ was saying of being like, I don't have anything to compare it to. It's the water that I've always swam in. I think that with mental health, the challenge that we're all facing, and by we all, I mean every human being on the planet, is whatever water they're swimming in, finding ways to be okay, hopefully to thrive in that water. Our particular, especially in America, our culture drives us to be consumers first. And that does not seem to me to be conducive to mental health. It's very dehumanizing. It's exhausting. So I think that my mental health's doing okay. It seems like it's like I said earlier, it's a work in progress given the society that I live in. But I think being mindful of the society, and mindful of those pressures, and seeking ways to still be an individual and to recognize my own humanity and the humanity of others is paramount for staying healthy in our culture.
I really want to hear from Oz, but I really want to respond to something on that, and kind of putting ourselves in the perspective of, the fish not recognizing that how the water is, because they've always been in water. That if we were to put, replace that with people, we have a lot more ability to affect the cleanliness of the water. We can pay attention to the water at this side versus the water over here, the water over there. We can, if we become aware of the water, metaphorically, then we can at least do things to impact change for the water, right? Do y'all agree?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Becoming aware of the water is what we're talking about here.
Right.
All right, and real quick, I wanted to give Oz a chance to respond, and then we're going to have to cut this short and do our closings. Oz, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, after all of you brilliant people speaking, I don't know if there's too much left to say. Try to follow up on that, but I do agree with the this is also the only water I've ever known, and from my anecdotal argument is my mental health has done pretty well with a capitalistic society. And the reason I say that, it's going to sound selfish, but being a high school dropout, I've used it, the competitive part of it, I've used to my advantage. I built a great career, did very, very well for myself because I didn't have to worry about anything else. I could just go out there and outwork everybody and out hustle everybody and get to where I needed to be. And I know that's not the case for everybody. That's why I said that. I know it sounds selfish, but for me, that part has served me well.
Can I just tack on one last thing? Is that just in my own life, I think that upon a little bit of reflection here, I've done better and better the less I've cared when it comes to being engaged with being a part of a capitalist society. The more that I find myself thinking about status and money, the more miserable I am. The more I compare myself to how other people are doing. One of my favorite quotes, one of my life mantras, it was Teddy Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I found that to be very, very true. Our society tries to place a value on the money and the status, but if we value other things, if we value our relationships, if we value, other pursuits than accumulating capital, I think there's a recipe found in there somewhere for being a happier and more healthy person in our culture.
Yes, and to then reflect off what Kenneth just said. I'd established a great career, was making way more money than I ever thought I'd make, and then through the COVID and all that. When I tried to go back to work, I think it was July of last year. And because I was isolated for so long, my anxiety was so high, it was literally crippling. And I was never like that before the pandemic. I was always I would speak in front of 200 and 300 people for work events. And like, I could do all that. And I went back to work and I literally was shaking. And my wife and I talked about it, and I now work from home, and and I help take care of the kids here. She works outside of the house full time, and I make half of what I did before. But guess what I am today, though? Going through my therapy and doing all that contributes as well. I am the happiest and most fulfilled version of myself that I've ever known and my family's ever known, because I'm not in the quote unquote rat race, and so I get both sides of it. Just to be clear, but doing now what I love and what I'm passionate about is way better than being in the rat race and making all that money, because the money, you can do a lot of fun shit, but it doesn't make you happy ultimately.
I was talking to a friend of mine who works for a very high powered law firm in New York City. He was visiting Chicago, and I was like, "So how's it going?" He's fucking miserable. And I was like, "Well, why do you do it? Just quit, do something else." And he's like, "No, I gotta win that rat race." And I'm like, "For what? You're going to be king rat? You're still a rat. if you're in the race, you're still a rat. Just refuse to be a rat."
Where does the money go when you die?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Allison, thank you so much for calling in today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I hope you can call back and we can have a little more time to chat next time.
Yeah, for sure. I know.
Ah, crap. Sorry.
God damn it.
But yeah, we are like over time, and we've still got people to plug because I have to get over to talk Ethan. So
I do too.
In a minute or less, starting with Laura, if there's anything you wanted to wrap up with, and tell everyone where to find you. Please do not go over a minute.
Okay, awesome. I'll be less than a minute. Thank you guys all for having me on. I have my channel Unapologetically Me. I also just started a podcast called Skeptic Hangout, and I'll be on with Ethan in April on The Perspective. Yeah, so I'm just plunking away doing my thing. Thank you guys for having me on. And next.
Thank you. Kenneth.
Yo, one of the mods will... thank you, mods, by the way, for everything that you do. Yes. One of the mods will stick my link tree in the thing, and you can find me there.
Even better than mine.
Thank you both to the mods and our lovely call screener, Kaitlyn Beyond. Also, for those who don't know, consider becoming a patron. I'd like to thank our current top tier patrons, Kenneth Leonard, Expresso Cat, Doanya, Kaitlyn Beyond. But in case you don't know, this does cost us money, particularly the call-in show aspect. So consider becoming one for as low as $1 a month. Oz, what about you?
First of all, thanks for having me again, guys, and thanks. It was great hanging out with everybody here. This was awesome. Appreciate it. I am Oz from the Atheist Roundtable. T.A.R.T.live is the easiest way to do it. Go there. I believe all of our stuff is on there. And yeah, that's it for me.
Right. And IQ.
Oh, this is really easy. I don't self-shill. Follow all these fine people. We've got a great community going on here, and it's people who actually give a shit. And that's seriously speaking. Everybody here cares. Get involved. Talk to people. Get out there. And, there's a lot of really good people here. Show love whenever possible. Don't be afraid to show your teeth when you have to. You'll find that you have to do a whole lot less biting.
Well said. Jenna, what do you got going on?
I think we're going to have to do another roundtable with these same people and have to talk about things that we've learned in the past, because I think that all of us have kind of an interesting background with mental health.
Mental health and Cheerios. I'm on it.
Right.
I agree. I think we need to have a whole nother episode about that, because that is where the real meat is.
Right. That's when we get juicy and intimate.
The Cheerios?
I bet you I could come up with a TED Talk on it.
I would love to do a follow-up, but I have to be pretty Jenna, if you could wrap up real quick. And I apologize to everyone. I'm not trying to be rude, but I have to be at the call screening green room at a specific time. So I really have to press for the end of the show.
Shut the fuck up mode activated.
That's last night's ice cream talking. That's last night's ice cream. He's running straight to the bathroom because he ate all that ice cream. That's what's going on. Don't let him fool you.
No, I'm screening with him, and they need screeners, so we got a jet.
Just I've got a link tree, linktr.ee/Jenna Belk, and that's got all my stuff on it.
Okay, well, yeah, we have all the people's links are in the description of the video. This Tuesday, I forgot who I'm co-hosting the oh wait, Oz is going to be on The Perspective this Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central, where we tackle paranormal, supernatural claims, alien abductions, all the fun stuff every Thursday with Hannah Vaughn. I do a show on dating, sex, and relationships, and then Sundays with Jenna Belk. And then April 12th is the debut of yet another new show with V La Bianca. Kenneth Leonard and Shannon Q will be our guests that day, and they will be eating progressively hotter wings while debating 3 different topics. Yes, if you're familiar with that format, we did take it from Hot Ones, but we're making
stop typing. We already know it's a ripoff.
Yes, we're making the atheist version of Hot Ones, so it's going to be way more fun. Anyways, thank you to our patrons, mods, the community. Thank you to everyone for watching, and thank you to our fine guests, Laura, Jenna, Kenneth, Oz, and IQ. And if you want to see more of them, their links are in the description. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you on Talk Heathen.